Well, it's noon here in Lagos, Nigeria. Hello and welcome to Lunchtime Politics on Channels Television. I'm Kayode Kikilu. Well, here are the major political stories this hour. PDP has failed us, says River State Governor Siminalayi Fubara, as he expresses disappointment in the party, adding that they have now become a movement defending democracy. Vice President Kashim Shettima asks the president's political appointees to work together and support President Tinubu rather than apportion blame. The Nigeria Governors Forum adjourns meeting on minimum wage, amongst others, as it promises workers a better minimum wage. We'll find out what this better wage should look like. Well, we'll begin with what you could call a vote of no confidence from the River State Governor to his party, the People's Democratic Party. Governor Siminalayi Fubara says he's disappointed with the PDP, which he says has failed him and his supporters in the state. He made this statement during a meeting with members of a Senate Committee on Privatization led by Senator Orji Uzor-Kalu at the Government House in Port Harcourt. Well, among the committee members was Senator Abamoro, a former Minister of Interior, whom Governor Fubara acknowledged as a leader within his party, the PDP. The governor then went on to speak about the issues concerning unity of the party and in the state.
Our state today, we're no longer doing party, we're doing a movement. So don't blame me if I didn't go the side of the party so much. The party has failed us here. So what we're doing now is to stand with our two legs fitted on the soil of River State so we can defend democracy. Some of I don't like going into this issue of peace, problem. But because the chairman of this committee has mentioned it, I would like to say a few things so that the record will be straight and correct. Whatever situation we find ourselves today in this state, you all know the cause of it. Where on earth can tenure of a local government chairman be elongated? You were a former governor. Was it tried in your time? Even those of you that are senators here, even in your own state, is it that the constitution that governs Nigeria is different from the one that operates in River State? Those are the questions, very pertinent questions we should ask. Why should it be that when it comes to the case of River State, the law is always silent? Is just that there is somebody bigger than Nigeria? That is the question I want you to go with. So, please, distinguished senator, I'm not fighting anybody. Somebody thinks, or some people feel they own life. I don't own life. The person who owns life is God. What we're doing here is to serve the people of River State because God has given us this opportunity. It doesn't matter the channel the opportunity came from, but the most important thing is God. And nobody takes the place of God in anything.
Well, while we wait to find out what the party, the PDP, has to say about this, let's tell you that Vice President Kashim Shettima has again called on President Bola Tinubu's appointees to rally around the president to make the nation work. He made the call during the visit by presidential delegation led by the Chief of Staff to the President, Mr. Femi Gbajabiamila, who paid him a visit in Kano to condole him and his family over the loss of his mother-in-law, Hajia Mariam al-Bashir. The Vice President urged the President's cabinet to support him in his quest to salvage the nation. According to Senator Shettima, it is not a game of apportioning blame, but a game of making the country work. He then thanked the President for sending the delegation to condole with him. And as Nigeria joins the rest of the world to mark this year's International Day Against Drug Abuse and Illicit Drug Trafficking, President Tinubu is pledging additional support for the NDLEA, that's the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, to curb the menace of substance abuse in the country. President Tinubu, who was represented at the ceremony to mark the day at the banquet hall in Abuja by the Secretaries of Government of the Federation, Senator George Akume, gave the assurance of federal government to assist the NDLEA to reduce the statistics of people who abuse drugs and substances in the country by mobilizing funds for the agency.
I enjoin all and sundry to support the War Against Drug Abuse Initiative, otherwise known as the WADA campaign, launched by NDLEA 3 years ago. I commend and urge everyone to redouble their efforts to combat drug abuse and trafficking in the country. On this score, we wish to reassure you of this administration's support. The renewed hope agenda places the youth at the center of its focus. Therefore, we shall ensure that our young people are protected from anything that could derail their future or destroy their potential. The assignment before us as a country requires that we prioritize evidence-based prevention strategies, allocate adequate resources, and foster partnerships. This government will support NDLEA to build on the success recorded in the past few years.
Well, let's talk about the big one, the minimum wage. The Nigeria Governors Forum, is assuring workers of a better minimum wage, even as it adjourned its meeting on Wednesday to further consult with stakeholders on the matter. A communication by the chairman of the forum after a meeting that lasted into the early hours of today notes that the governors are desirous of a better minimum wage for the workers. The issues of a new national minimum wage and local government autonomy were prominent in the agenda for the meeting of the governors on Wednesday. Although the chairman of the forum turned down a media interview after the meeting that held at the NGF Secretariat in Abuja, the governor of Zamfara State says the forum decided to adjourn the meeting to enable it to consult further on the issues of a new minimum wage and that of local government autonomy, which were deliberated upon at the meeting.
You remember, or you've seen what the president said? There's going to be consultation with governors, so we haven't met yet. Likely we may meet tomorrow, so it is only when we meet, then you know the outcome.
We understand that local government autonomy was part of the agenda of the meeting. Can we have an idea of what the discussion was about?
Well, I mean, still discussion is ongoing because it is something that concerns everybody. And it's something that we'll have to do justice with.
So, they say they have to do justice to this issue, but what does justice look like? What should the target be for all the parties concerned? Recall that the president had said he needed to consult wider, and it looks like the governors and the president will be having a meeting. But what more should be said? Well, let's get some more insights on the program this afternoon. We're joined by Mr. Chike Chude, who is the National Secretary of the NUJ, joins us live from our Abuja studio. Welcome to Lunchtime Politics, Mr. Chude.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Let's begin from that meeting, which was adjourned, and it said that the governors will then meet with the president, may or may not meet with the president. The president has said he needs to consult wider. If you can hear me, Mr. Chude, but I just want to get your thoughts on the president's statement to begin with.
Sorry, I can't hear you.
Right.
Okay.
I imagine you can hear me now.
Yes, I can hear you now. So
okay.
Kindly,
Right. So my question first is to get your thoughts, because I know the NUJ put out a statement regarding this issue, the minimum wage and others. But what do you make of the president saying he needs to consult wider, coming off the back of a tripartite committee that did its work from February to June and submitted reports? So what more consultations do you think the president wants to make at this point?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The National Executive Council of the NUJ met in Ibadan a few days ago, and also reiterated our support for labor and for the minimum wage. Pegged that at least on the part of labor at 250,000, and we also urge the government to do everything possible to ensure that this money is paid. So what do we want the government? What else do we want? Look, the president has set the ball rolling. When you were in your opener, you were talking about actually what constitutes, what should constitute this minimum wage. The president, in his inaugural address to the nation, talked about it. He defined it as a living wage for the Nigerian workers, and he had cause to also talk about it, several times after that. It's a good thing that the governors are coming off at their meeting instead of the usual saber rattling from them about what they will not do and all that. They are talking about providing the workers with something that hopefully should make them happy. And I want to believe that that is a shift. And as for the president, I agree with you that this discussion has endured for quite some time. And you will think that since it is a tripartite discussion, that they would have arrived at a position that is the government, labor, and then, of course, the organized private sector. So I don't know exactly why the president says he needs to consult wide, because the president has representatives that he sent, that the federal government sent to this tripartite meeting. But perhaps there are a few things that need to be ironed out, and perhaps he also feels that he needs to bring some political weight and pressure on the governors to ensure that this is done. Obviously, the president is in the eye of the storm. He is the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. You have 36 governors. You have members of the organized private sector, and of course, the 2 labor centers. But you only have one president. And there is obviously a lot of things revolve around the president and the kind of influence that he can bring on these discussions, especially with regards to the governors themselves. So we hope that that it's this political pressure that he wants to bring to this discussion with the stakeholders, especially with the governors.
Now that you talk about the governors, which of course are at the heart of this conversation, one of them, Governor Chukwuma Soludo, had said just recently that he pities the president, in his words, if the president approves an unsustainable minimum wage. He said that. And I mean, at that point, it was 62,000 that was at least approved so far on the side of government, even though Labour stuck to 250,000 naira. So for a governor to say that he pities the president if he approves something that is unsustainable, and we've heard the governor saying even the 62,000 naira is quite a lot, considering that it's still a huge chunk of effort to pay 30,000 naira. Do you see a collision course in the coming days between the federal government and the states? Even the private sector says 62,000 is enough. They shouldn't go beyond that. So do you sense a collision course right now?
Well, I pity the Nigerian worker if they are going to settle for 62,000 naira that will not have any bearing on their sustainability, and the sustainability of their families. Don't forget that what the Nigerian worker is facing is an existential threat. It's a threat to his livelihood, it's a threat to his welfare, it's a threat to his very being and that of his family. 62,000, look, for you to understand how, pathetically ridiculous even 62,000 naira is, you ask the political actors to break down this 62,000 naira. What will constitute transportation, what will constitute feeding, what will constitute medical bills and all of that. When you go down, you break it down, you realize that the 62,000 naira is a joke. So I think, of course, the statement by the governor of Anambra State, I don't think, was diplomatic enough. He might say, well, truth has to be spoken. But truth has to be spoken on behalf of the politicians, on behalf of the president, on behalf of the governors, who speaks the truth on behalf of the workers. So these are the issues, really, ultimately at the end of the day. And we still say, look, for as long as, and that's what we have always, talked about, for as long as the politicians, by the kind of lifestyles they live, both in official capacity and in private capacity, keep on giving us the impression that all is well with our economy, all is well with our country. You cannot make that argument when it comes to the very, meager pitiable monies that the average Nigerian worker goes home with. So there's a discrepancy really between how the politician perceives and the political elite, how they perceive the kind of lifestyle that they are living, which is justified regardless of how extravagant it is. But with the little that the ordinary worker seems to get, they are, they are begrudging him, that very little that he gets, which is not even enough to take him home. So I think I'm happy, I'm emboldened, I'm encouraged by the statements of the governors that they are going to look for something that is going to be reasonable, but it must be something that is agreed upon. This is a tripartite negotiation. We must not forget the nature of this negotiation. So whatever agreement is reached must be an agreement that is reached by all sides to this discussion. I mean, in line with the International Labour Convention. So it's not the president taking a decision, or it's not the governors and the president taking a decision, or the organized private sector. It is a decision that will be taken by both the government, the organized private sector, and labor. That's why it is called a tripartite discussion that leads to a tripartite negotiation and agreement ultimately at the end of the day.
Right.
But the reality is that we need to begin. Yes, we need to do something about the economy. And what is happening today, like I keep on saying, is that this is a spin-off from so many years of abuse of the Nigerian political and economic system. So it's not just something that has to do with this administration. It has transcended several administrations. We need ultimately at the end of the day to open up the economic space in this country so that we can have the kind of stimulate the economy in a way that opens up the space for a lot of other economic activities to take place. But we must remember ultimately that the people that are asking for a minimum wage are human beings who also need to survive, just as the politicians and the elites are surviving.
Well, Mr. Chude, and that's why I asked you if you sense that they might just be on a collision course here. You hear the governor saying one thing, the president saying another. Then Labour actually says they didn't reach an agreement at the end of the tripartite committee's negotiations. And I'm talking from, in fact, January up until June. Labour says they didn't come to an agreement, especially when they heard the president saying, coming off of the tripartite committee's agreement, he will present something to the National Assembly. So how much trust then can the workers have in this process? If the tripartite committee did its work, the government side says an agreement was reached, Labour says no agreement was reached, president says I'll present something, president now says I'll hold off and then consult further. Who else? Because the governors were also on the tripartite committee, they had representation on it. So in all, do you sense that this is being conducted the way it ought to be conducted in the first place? Because you cannot build something on nothing. One only wonders what will come out of this process that is fraught with a lot of inconsistencies.
Yeah, well, I think that Labour has been, consistent, especially when they were able to put their house in order. Talking about the NLC and the TUC working together as one unit. But it would appear that there is a bit of inconsistency at the level of government. Chukwuma Soludo's statement gives credence to that fact that he pities the president because they are one side of that discussion. And then when the president now says that he has to go and meet with the governors and the stakeholders to also discuss further, it tells you that perhaps they have not reached unanimity of agreement on what needs to be done. But when it comes to the level of the workers, they are speaking with one voice and they are speaking in unison. And I think that is good. As to whether we are set on a collision course, I don't know. I hope we don't get to that level. I can tell you that Labour is very anxious to avoid any other crisis that will be precipitated by the inability of having a conclusive, agreeable a conclusion to this discussion. So they will be loath to have to go on another either protest or strike and all that. So I hope that for the good of the economy, that the political office holders, the governors in this instance, and the federal government will really come to some kind of agreement. And then we also need to begin to look at how we can cut down. Look at what is going on in Kenya. Look at the reaction from the Nigerian people to certain increases, when it comes to public utilities and with taxes and all that, and the harshness of the living conditions of the Kenyan people, and look at the response to this protest by the Kenyan government. So these are the things that we expect. We don't need to go on the street like has happened in Kenya before the political office holders begin to cut down on their expenses on this. And we have talked about this for decades, for a very long time. This issue of cost of governance. And we should take an example from Kenya, because the president has spoken, and then all down the line he has told them that they have to implement austerity measures when it comes to the issues of the remuneration and the allowances that the politicians are taking home. That is a response to what is going on in Kenya. So we should have this kind of response from the political elites, who have always been fond of telling us to make sacrifices. We have been making sacrifices. We have been tightening our belt from 1979 till date. Let's not forget, that expression, tighten your belt. We have done that for all of how many years? About 3 decades or more. And then, but we want to expect that the politicians would also realize that we have gotten to a point of no return where they themselves also have to lead by example. And we want to encourage them to do that. After all, they are part of us. So we are not, on a collision course with them. They are citizens of this country. They came out from us. But what we are saying is that they should also understand that the shoes are pinching, and they are pinching exceedingly very, very hard. And that we are getting to a point of, inability to, continue in the old ways. Things just have to give, and we hope that they will do the needful.
You think it's a no-brainer that the politicians, those in government, should read the room? And you mentioned what's playing out in Kenya. I'll go back to the communique you released. That's the NUJ after the meeting in Ibadan, the Oyo State capital, a 17-paragraph communique. And there were demands. Some of them, a lot of them actually touched on the state of the economy, the minimum wage, and the rest. But there's a point that was made in that communique, and you expressed concerns at the delay in production at the Dangote Refinery, which would have eased the present economic hardship in the country. I wonder how you received what Dangote has described as a minor fire, the effluent treatment plant yesterday, and more importantly, what a lot of people have described as a delay in that coming out, particularly petrol, people having petrol in Nigeria.
Yeah, well, we earnestly hope that we are not giving a red herring with regards to Dangote Refinery, and especially again with the repair of the Port Harcourt Refinery, because we have also been told, and we have been expectant, we of course we want the prices of basic commodities to go down, and we know that the major situation that set up this nightmare of increase of inflation and increased prices of goods and services in the country was the removal of the subsidy. So we were told that very soon the Dangote Refinery will come on stream, the Port Harcourt Refinery will come on stream, and that once this happens, then we should begin to see less pressure on the naira, and that automatically will bring down, hopefully, increase the value of the naira, and then the general deflationary measures in the country. A lot of things will come down and affect the prices of goods and services downwards. And so we have not seen that, and that's why we are worried that the neck of the NUJ that we held in Ibadan, and it was a topic of discussion that whatever it is that constrains the Dangote Refinery from coming fully on stream and then supplying much needed product into the Nigerian system, that all of these obstacles should be removed so that, like I said, the benefits that a lot of us had seen or had been told would arise. That so we'll begin to feel some of them, obviously. So we are worried about, for instance, what you talked about, the fire, the effluent section of the Dangote Refinery. We are worried about the complaint that Dangote made a few days ago about some attempts by the oil majors or so, from what they said, to frustrate them and all that. These are things that we expect the government to step in because the situation with Dangote Refinery is a national issue. We are talking about Dangote, for instance, as the biggest refinery in Africa. So it's a thing of pride. But when it does not, their services or their product does not translate to what we were told would happen, bringing down the prices of fuel, a major source of energy in this country, then it becomes a problem for a lot of us. So we're expecting a reduction in these prices, but everything must be done to ensure that promises that have been made are promises that are kept.
Well, I'd like to thank you so much, Mr. Chikechude, National Secretary of Nigeria Union of Journalists. Thank you for your time on Lunchtime Politics.
It's been a pleasure. It's been a pleasure, Kayode. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's talk security now. The Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Tarid Lagbaja, is urging those engaged in armed confrontation against the state to pursue dialogue as a means of resolving their issues instead. He also charged troops not to relent in fulfilling their constitutional roles, regardless of challenges confronting the army. The Army Chief was speaking in Bauchi during his visit to commission the new headquarters of the Nigerian Army Armored Corps reunion and pulling out parade.
My appeal to Nigerians who have taken up arms against the state is that they see reason that it's only an atmosphere of peace that the economy can thrive, we can experience progress, and all those things that they desire from the government, from the state, can be realized. So I appeal to them that they should drop their arms and seek dialogue and other means through which their grievances can be addressed.
President Bola Tinubu has approved the upgrade of the Ibadan Airport to International Airport. Oyo State Governor Seyi Makinde announced the news and revealed that the upgrade will commence soon and will include the construction of a new terminal, runway, and other structural features. Governor Makinde made the announcement during a meeting with the Chief of Air Staff at the Governor's office in Ibadan, the state capital, where he expressed his appreciation for the Air Force's efforts in maintaining internal security in the state and reiterated his administration's commitment to working with the Air Force to deliver the Air Force Base in Ibadan. And that's the program for this afternoon. Thank you for watching. Well, you've been served, as we say. I'm Kayode Okikelu. Stay with Channels Television for all the breaking stories and political news. Goodbye.